It's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check out all of our other stuff. Links in the description. Look for Linktree. Everything's there. This week's episode, the Lubbock Lights. This is a good one, guys. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, but just haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason.
I love these historical cases.
Yeah, and this one, by the way, was voted on by our Patreon members who decided on this one and did not decide on whatever the other choice was. I forget what it was now, but...
Was it the ice cat?
No, it was not the Yule cat from Iceland. Somebody on Discord wanted us to do the Yule cat from Iceland, so I put that on one of the previous votes, and like nobody voted for it. I'm like, oh, I kind of wanted to do that one. All right. But anyways, yeah, so this is a real classic sighting, and unusually, most of these we don't have any photographic evidence for, but in this case, we actually have 5 photographs, some of which are pretty good.
And easy to find.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, super easy to find.
Yeah. Was it shot on like a 38 millimeter camera, right?
35.
Like one of those
35,
Kodaks
yeah.
or something. It was old school.
Yeah, but it still takes good pictures though. And these pictures are pretty decent, I would have to say. You know, I mean, it's not like you can see great detail and stuff, but they are good pictures, and you can see like the formation, and we'll describe that later. But yeah, it's well, I'll just allude to some of the explanations. It doesn't line up with some of the explanations, you know, that like the Air Force came up with it and what have you. And,
Not at all.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll talk about the photographs and all that stuff in a little bit. But let's give some basics of the case. What are we talking about here that they have photographs of? So we're talking about a case that happened in August and September 1951. And there are some similar sightings before and after those months, up through November by some accounts. But the main event happened August and September. Now, for these months, just out of curiosity, I looked, and Project Blue Book has, on Fold 3 anyways, there are 166 records for August and 425 for September. So things were heating up in September.
Wow.
Now, there were plenty of months that had way more than that, but it's more than some of the surrounding months, that's for sure. That's a decent number of cases. So
it's a lot.
Yeah. This we're talking about is Lubbock, Texas. And that's sort of like in the north, central north part-ish of Texas, I guess. Texas is so big, it's kind of hard to describe where it is, but it's in sort of the northern part of Texas.
It's supposed to be pretty big. I don't know how big it was back in the 50s, but now it's pretty populous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have, I looked for a museum, I looked for parades, celebration. They don't have anything. I didn't see anything. I was really disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the only one celebration that I've seen is from Texas Tech University. They have like a music festival every year that's called like the Lubbock Lights.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So the sighting made national and even international news, particularly when the photos came out. Those hit the press as hard. Newspapers, magazines. It was kind of a phenomenon back then. Like people were pretty excited about it. All right, so the first sighting that's generally the first sighting, not necessarily the first one you can find, but the first one that is associated with the Lubbock Lights event was by 3 college professors from Texas Technological College on August 25th, 1951 at 9 p.m. The 3 guys were A.G. Oberg, a chemical engineer, W.L. Ducker, a petroleum engineer, and W.I. Robinson, a geologist. They were sitting in a backyard of one of their houses when they saw a formation of 20 to 30 lights as bright as stars but larger in size in a V formation or crescent shape fly overhead silently. They went horizon to horizon in a few seconds. So that's pretty crazy, right?
They were moving.
Yeah.
They were moving fast, whatever it was. Right?
They were cooking. The professors discussed certain possibilities after it went overhead, like maybe it was meteors or something. And we're talking about people who would have been familiar with meteors and how fast they moved. Meteors move very, very fast, like 250,000 miles an hour or something, when they're up in the higher atmosphere and they burn up. So these guys know what they're talking about. So if they're discussing that they're meteors, we're talking about objects that went very fast.
Meteors also don't move in formations either.
No, they don't. At least not that I've ever
as
seen.
far as I know.
Yeah. Well, and they leave streaks. They're not just dots, but
Yeah.
But I mean, they didn't know what it was. They were just sort of like, all right, well, this could be anything. What is it? So as they were discussing the possibilities and they were still standing in the yard, another group of lights flew overhead. Now, the second time, they were a little more prepared for it. It didn't take them by surprise as much. And they estimated that the lights moved through about 30 degrees in 1 second. So 30 arc degrees or whatever. So 30 degrees of the sky, which if you think about the square, like the corner of a square is 90 degrees. Half of that would be, if you draw a line bisecting that would be 45 degrees. And then a little bit less than that is 30 degrees. So imagine that in the sky, going past that much sky in 1 second. That's a lot. So these things were cooking. They reported the sighting to the local newspaper, the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. That's a strange name for a newspaper. I kind of enjoyed that. And they also checked with the Air Force. The Air Force said that they didn't have anything in the area. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, because if a civilian calls up the Air Force and is like, hey, where's your jets at? The Air Force is going to be like, we're not telling, we don't have any jets. What are you talking about?
And depending on, who they talk to, they might just get like a roundabout answer like that. That's just like oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just because it could be because they're covering up something, but it could also be because they just don't want to talk to them. Like they're just like, I don't want to deal with this. No, we had nothing there,
I mean, how easy would it be if you're like a Russian operative and you just call up an Air Force base and go, hey, where are you guys' planes at? And they're like, oh, okay, we got this on the runway and that. I'm like, all right, cool.
Well, hey, let me tell you everything we're doing right now.
Yeah. So, there were other witnesses that night who said that they saw things like peculiar flashing lights moving around. And so that was the first event. And it's notable because this is not just some random person out in the middle of nowhere on their farm by themselves. We had 3 witnesses who are scientists. And, if you've ever heard scientists talk about UFOs, they're not buying it. They're generally not into it.
Typically, yeah.
Most scientists are like, what? Nah, that's not real, kind of a thing. But these people saw it, and they're like, I don't know what that is, Yeah,
and that's kind of the crazy thing about it is like they saw the first sighting, and then I'm sure I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that conversation, you know what I mean? And then also while they saw the second sighting, you're like they're already talking about it and they see it again. They're like, well, shit.
Yeah.
And then the status that they had also makes them, in my opinion, a more credible witness as well. Because you would think that their thought process is going to be more analytical. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now that I think about it, I wonder how they knew each other.
They all worked at the same school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because he was a petroleum engineer. One of them was a petroleum engineer.
Yeah, but he probably taught classes for petroleum engineering,
Yeah, so you had a chemical engineer, a petroleum engineer, and then also a geologist,
Yeah.
So those are 3 potentially very different perspectives, but also people that are very knowledgeable as well. So, yeah, I mean, those are damn good freaking witnesses right there.
All right, we're going to take a little break here. But yeah, particularly scientists too, they have like a reputation. It's a pretty small world for a lot of the academic sciences. They got to go to conferences and stuff. They have reputations. A lot of them, even if they saw something, they wouldn't want to go on record because you'd be ridiculed. You'd be treated like a crackpot and you might lose your professional reputation. Which
and I actually kind of have an opinion about this. Like, I think the reason why they went on record in particular is because all 3 of them saw it at the same time. They couldn't, deny what they saw. All three of them
Right.
were like, what the hell was that? Kind of, like
Yeah.
we definitely saw that. Whatever that was, we saw it,
Yeah, and they weren't speculating. They didn't say it was this or that. They just reported exactly what they saw, how they saw it,
Yeah, yeah, and also I remember reading that they had an opinion that whatever it was that they did see, they had a little bit of a inclination that it's a flying craft of some sort. So they believed it was pretty high up in altitude because they couldn't hear any sound from it. So that's one of the reasons why they thought it was pretty high up in altitude, because if it was a flying craft, you should be able to hear something from it, especially how many objects they saw at the same time, and in the flying formation.
Well,
so I mean that's this.
I don't know if it was this particular one, but one of the sightings, maybe I'll get to in a bit, but I thought it was this one, but there was like a cloud layer, and the witnesses saw the objects go above the clouds. And the clouds, they looked up later, the cloud layer was like at 2,000 feet. So that gives us a good altitude. And he used that to estimate the speed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I took notes on that. So we'll get to that in a minute. But so the next event was on August 30th, when a freshman at Texas Tech named Carl Hart observed 18 to 20 lights in a V formation flying overhead. And he thought to himself, at least this is how I imagine it went. He thought to himself, well, that's not normal. Let me go get my camera in case that happens again.
Well, that ain't right.
Yeah. So he grabbed his 35 millimeter Kodak and went to his backyard and just kind of hung out to see if he could see them again. He saw 2 more groups that night and was able to get 5 total pictures. He took those pictures to the newspaper, because at this point, I don't know the exact dates of the articles. I should have looked that up. But I imagine at this point, there was probably already an article in the paper because the professors reported it. And it was probably like a local thing. A lot of people had seen it by this point, and I'm sure the community, like everybody was on edge kind of looking for these things. So he was probably surprised to see them. It's like if somebody says, hey, I saw a Bigfoot in my backyard. And you're like, bullshit. And then you're like, at night, you're kind of like, I'm just going to peek out my window just in case. And you actually see it there. You'd be like, what? That's crazy, man. So so he got his camera.
And actually it's kind of funny too, because I read a quote from the editor Jay Harris of the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, and like when he had received these photos, he actually told him that like, if these aren't real, I will quote unquote run him out of town.
Yeah,
because and like that kind of speaks to like how popular that was in that moment, that story, because they were like, when Hart gave him those photos, or he came forward with those photos, it had already been something that was very popular in the area at the time. That had just happened. Yeah. And so the guy was just like, these aren't real, damn it, run you out of town, because obviously they were eager to get like to some evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and they also paid him for it. I found they paid him $10.
$10.
For the photos. Yeah. Which back then, that was probably like $1 million. I don't know.
$1 million.
Yeah, something
Maybe
like
not
that.
Quite.
Yeah. Okay, 500,000, whatever, close enough. So the photos were actually eventually sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Yeah, gabbity. The photos were eventually sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and analyzed. And you can actually find this analysis in the Project Blue Book files, which that file is pretty, I think it's like over 100 pages. I'll probably go over it in detail for like a bonus episode on Patreon, but it's just too much to go over right now for our purposes. So the public conclusion, what they told the public was, the photos were never proven to be a hoax, but neither were they proven to be genuine. And that's a quote from Ruppelt, the head of Project Blue Book at the time. So he's saying, well, we can't prove that they're fake, but we can't prove they're
tried to
real either. Yeah. We tried our best to make sure that they're, And I think what he means by proven to be genuine is that they were actually a UFO.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes that's like one of those explanations that like, the kind of explanation you're going to get from the government when you have like a photo or any kind of evidence, if they don't come out and straightforward say it's fake, then to me that's kind of compelling, because like otherwise I think they would if it was like obviously fake. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and we've talked about it before, but Ruppelt was probably the only head of Project Blue Book that was doing some sort of investigative activity. Like he actually was trying to, he played the middle. He never came out and said, yes, these are, flying saucers from another planet outside of our solar system. But on the other hand, he never really came out and said that this is all nonsense either, So
no, didn't he write a book?
Make up and believe.
Didn't he write a book later on?
Yes.
After he quit?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Because I think I remember reading that he claims in his book it was a natural phenomenon, but he can't disclose what the explanation is because of confidentiality.
I have that quote a little further down in my notes. But yeah, that book, the report on unidentified flying objects, guess what? I read it for this podcast. So if you want to hear the book in its entirety, I have different chapters. You can go back and check it out, including the chapter where he talks about the Lubbock Lights. So you get to hear the experience or investigation from his perspective. All right, so the next thing I have is on September 5th, the first 3 witnesses and a couple of other witnesses, like Richard Heinemann, a math professor, and another professor, Grayson Mead, they were in the front yard while the lights flew overhead again. They appeared to be the size of dinner plates and were greenish blue. They were slightly fluorescent and smaller than the full moon at the horizon. They saw about 12 to 15 lights. They reported that the lights were completely circular. And here's a quote. It says, one of them said, it gave all of us an extremely eerie feeling. Mead said that they could not be birds. They went over so fast that we wished we had a better look at them. And one of the professors saw the lights. Okay, this is the one. He saw them flying above a cloud at 2,000 feet because I think he looked it up later. He could tell, how high it was because it was above the clouds. And he calculated an approximate speed of 600 miles an hour. Now, there are some birds that fly 600 miles an hour. No, just kidding. There aren't.
I was going to say, what? Yeah. What birds are you talking about, sir? What the hell?
No, that's like the speed of sound, give or take, I forgot the exact number of the speed of sound. It changes with density anyways, but it's in the ballpark. That's about Mach 1, give or take. Other witnesses reported seeing huge, silent flying wings moving over the city around this time. Now, the Air Force did have some flying wings at the time, for example, the Northrop YB-49, but they were far from silent. All the witnesses in this event reported that the UFOs were silent, and some of them said it was flying low. Some reported seeing an actual craft. But, the YB-49, if that was flying at like 2,000 feet, you would hear it, it would be.
Yeah. Well, and also, how many of those do you think were around at the time? Not this many, you know what I mean? For an experimental aircraft like that, do you think they had because some of the reports, that they're talking about 18, 20 lights in the sky, sometimes a little bit more, but around there. So how many of these experimental craft do you think were around? If it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do you think an experimental craft is going to have lights on it that will make itself so obvious? No, it wouldn't. In my opinion, no. Why would you? Because it's experimental. It's something that you don't want to give it away. The presence of necessarily because you're working on it. You're trying to. It's a secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and experimental craft, they don't just fly them over populated areas. That would be silly. They're trying to keep them secret. They do their experiments in very specific areas, so it's out of the view of the public. Yeah. But all right. So also about why I don't think it was the military's, because they knew exactly where they're, not everybody, it was compartmentalized, obviously, but as it went up the chain of command, somebody would at some point would have said, oh yeah, that was ours. But as you read through the documents, which are unclassified documents from Project Blue Book, so at the time they were classified, you can see that they clearly had no idea what these things were. Nobody anywhere, at least not that I saw, said, oh yeah, that was ours, Mm-hmm. So at some point somebody would have been able to identify it. One of the witnesses that we talked about earlier, Professor Drucker, said that he saw 12 different instances of the lights between August and November, and other witnesses saw as many as 10 different instances. So these things were being seen pretty commonly by quite a lot of people. There were, I mean, all told, there were hundreds of witnesses. Probably everybody in the area saw them at one time or other, kind of like one of those Charlie Red Star kind of deals, where everybody in the area saw it. Project Blue Book, like I said, investigated this, and it's they concluded that the official conclusion, I guess, was that the witnesses had seen groups of plovers flying overhead, because so plovers are a bird with like their bellies are like very, very white and reflective. And I guess they had...
And also oily, I guess, for some reason.
Yeah.
I remember reading that too. Like they said that like one of the reasons why they thought it was the plovers was because it has a oily underbelly, and that is it's one of those, it'll reflect light easily, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, and also I think I don't know if you were about to mention this or not. I'm sorry if I'm stealing your thunder here, but
no, go for it.
There was a lot of street lights that had recently been installed in the area, and that was one of the explanations. Is like, oh, these new street lights that they had installed are shining light upwards, I guess, for some reason, even though they are not. They're pointed towards the ground. And so I don't know how that works, but at any rate, like, they said like the light was reflecting off of the breasts of these birds, and that was what was causing, the formations of lights or what have you. And like, obviously, and we already alluded to this, because how fast some of these formations were moving, especially by the explanation of these professors and stuff that saw it originally. I don't know how it could be birds,
right?
You know what I mean? And how bright that they described some of these objects as well. They said it was like brighter than the stars in the sky. And like, I just don't see it, how that could be a possibility if they're birds. Now I'm not willing to say that it's not possible for light to refract off of a bird in the right situation, what have you. But those birds, if it was a bird formation, they wouldn't be traveling that high in the sky or that fast.
Yeah.
So to me, that sounds like a very bullshit explanation,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't accept that in any way, shape, or form, to be honest.
Well, and the devil is in the details like that. At first, when I read about that, I guess that kind of makes sense, was my reaction. But then when I thought about it, I had the exact same reaction you did, which was, wait a minute.
Birds do fly in V formations and stuff, or U formations, or something in between, whatever,
But street lights are pointed at the street. They don't install them pointing upwards. It's like,
and also, even if they're still pointing at obviously they're pointing at the streets, but even like if the light was refracting off of like the ground or whatever, it's still, how could it be that bright? As what has been described? You know what I mean? I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Or traveling that fast.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely. Yeah.
Also, there's a couple of problems with the plover explanation. Is that, first of all, they have about a 1 foot wingspan. Apparently, that's what I found online, and that's a small bird. That's like a little bird. Like, that's their wingspan when their wings are open. So these are little tiny guys. There are smaller birds out there, but these aren't big boys. They couldn't make something that big in the sky. So plover is just completely right out. It was also proposed that it could have been ducks. Oh yeah, plovers are also right out because they don't fly in groups of 30. They fly in groups of like 3 or 5 or something. Never more than
that. Oh, really?
That.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're right out. Ducks are, they went, okay, well, plovers are stupid, so maybe it could be ducks. Like, and it's just, have you ever seen birds flying overhead, like a formation of birds? You can,
sure.
They don't just travel in a straight line like an airplane. They wiggle up and down a little bit because they're like moving their wings around and stuff, right? Like, it's this is not at all what the witnesses described,
And they're usually not in perfect formation. You got that one straggler, or that one dumbass who's flying in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also you look at the pictures that Carl Hart took, And that's not what I'm seeing in those pictures. You know what I mean? You don't see stragglers. If it was light refracting off of the bottom of a bird, you would expect to see those stragglers or those, the unperfect formation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But what I see is a very uniform formation in those pictures. So that explanation to me, like I said, is complete and utter bullshit in my opinion.
Well, in order for the birds to fly this quickly, they'd have to be very, very close to the ground. And if they were that close to the ground, you would be able to easily tell that they were birds. Plus, there was that very inconvenient witness who saw them flying above the clouds, which were at 2,000 feet. So we know that it's just, we can pretty much cross birds off the list, I think, for this one anyways.
Yeah.
J.C. Cross, the head of Texas Tech's biology department and a game warden, said that the birds could not be the solution. Remember our witness Meade, he said, "These objects were too large for any bird. I've had enough experience hunting, and I don't know of any bird that could go this fast we would not be able to hear. To have gone as fast as this to be birds, they would have to have been exceedingly low to disappear quite so quickly." So, even the witnesses came out after the bird explanation was proposed. Some of the witnesses came out, and even like this warden guy came out, and they're like, "Nah, dude, this is ridiculous." So I wanted to throw that quote in there because, it's not just us speculating. Some of the witnesses who saw this stuff definitively said, no, it was not birds. Now, the chief photographer for the Lubbock Avalanche, William Hams, that's a great name, by the way. I love that name. Bill Hams. Sounds like something out of a movie.
What kind of movie?
Exactly. So, he actually experimented with this idea, and he took nighttime photographs of birds flying over the streetlights, and he was not able to replicate Hart's photos. Because, duh. But he went out and tried it. He said, okay, well, maybe let's see if we can make this look like that. And the birds were not that bright in the pictures. They were not that bright at all because, the lights are pointed down.
Because
they're birds.
Because they're birds.
Yeah. Birds are not self-luminous. Yeah. So here's a quote from Ruppelt's book that Agent Ether was referring to earlier. "They were not birds, refracted light, or spaceships. They were positively identified as a very commonplace and easily explainable natural phenomenon. It is very unfortunate that I can't divulge exactly the way the answer was found because it is an interesting story. I promised the man complete anonymity, but he fully convinced me that he had the answer, and after having heard hundreds of explanations of UFOs, I don't convince easily." It's like, all right, well, hey, I got the answer. I can't tell you what it is, but trust me, it's a good one. Okay, sure, buddy, sure.
Bullshit.
Yeah. "I think I might smell how does he say it? Whatever. Smell a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, I think I smell shite.
Yeah.
Oh, this definitely shite.
Yeah,
that's one of those things. Like if I have received that answer, I'd be like, okay, buddy, fuck you too.
Right. Yeah. Saying nothing would be better than saying that. It's like, dude, you don't have to lie. Just say you can't tell me. I'll believe you if you say you can't tell me.
Yeah.
None of this nonsense. All right, so I posted the pictures. Let's talk about the photos in a little bit more detail. I posted those under the live show chat. No, under episode discussion, I think. Let's see. Make sure.
Okay.
Let me double check that. See, on Discord under episode discussion, I posted. This is from Project Blue Book, although I didn't get it from Fold 3. I got it from a different website, but. These are numbered ABCD, lettered ABCD, but there's actually a fifth photo, but the fifth photo isn't that good. It's not that useful. It's kind of messy looking. It's very, very streaked. It looks like he was, his hands were shaking or something when he took it. So the first photo, labeled photo A, you can see it looks like the lines are blurred as if the photographer was moving the camera, or maybe the action of pushing the button on the camera or something, but it's the lines are like kind of streaked a little bit, and you can see to top right of the photograph, there's another line or streak that they put an arrow next to it when they're analyzing it or something. But another thing that is actually very useful for this photograph is if you look at the photograph, all the photographs, there are a bunch of dots, and you're like, okay, are those dots stars? It's kind of hard to tell. But if you look at this photograph number A, none of the dots, or at least most of the dots, are not streaked. A couple of the dots are streaked, but a lot of them are not. And that tells you that those dots are probably some sort of damage to the film negative, or some sort of scratching or something that happened during handling the photographs. And they're not actually, stars or something in the picture. So that's pretty useful. The second photograph, now this is the good one right here. This is the one, if you Google it, this is the one you'll see. It looks like it's the same object as in photograph A, but instead of being streaked, it's actually still. Now you have that same, what looks like an orb to the top right, and then you have this V formation. And if you look very, very carefully, it looks like you can actually see the outline of a craft. What do you guys think?
I did not see the outline of a craft. I looked. I wanted to, but I just saw lights.
You don't see it?
Yeah, I agree with Ether there. I mean, I see what you're talking about, but there's just not quite enough definition, you know what I mean, for me to have one opinion either way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If you change the contrast, if like you mess with the brightness and the contrast and that kind of stuff, it comes out a little bit more. I saw a forum post where people were modifying that kind of stuff. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just an artifact of the picture or something. But I mean, to me, it kind of looks like there's something there. I don't know. But
there's definitely something there.
Oh yeah, something there. But I mean, it looks like you can see a solid craft there. Is what I meant.
And some people claim that that's like the mothership. That's like the controlling ship that's guiding this formation. I heard.
Could be.
I don't know how true. I don't know how true that is, but kind of a cool theory.
And then we have two more pictures. We have number letter C, which is unlike the other ones. Instead of like a double row, you just have a single row of lights. And this one is a little streaked again. And you also have to the top right, you have that extra little orb up there. And then you have one to the left as well. And then you have finally photograph D, you have another V formation with a double row of lights. And you have an orb again to the top right of it, although this one's a little closer to the formation and a little farther off to the right of the formation. So those are the four pictures, and I think they're really, really compelling photographs. Of course, in and of themselves, they don't really prove a whole lot because they don't show that much details, but they do show what the witnesses, I think this is an actual photograph of whatever it was that people were seeing, Yeah.
There has been a few people that have done, pretty in-depth analysis of these photographs, and never has it been disproven. It seems like they're genuine photographs of what I don't exactly know. I lean towards it being most likely some kind of UFO activity, but that's my own, opinion,
Yeah.
But I don't know what other explanation I could come up with for this. If these are real photographs and real photographs of something that he was seeing in the sky, and he took a photo of it, I don't know what the hell else it could be, because like whatever technology, at least that we know of, that like our government had at the time, or what have you, it's not stars, because stars are when you look up in the sky and you see like formations of stars, like they're more random than that, way more random than this. They don't come in groupings like this. You know what I mean? Like it's like obviously like we talked about before, it's not birds. I completely do not accept that explanation.
No,
but I just don't know what the hell it could be. Now, I know that some people will argue that, like I said before, it was government technology, right? Because like a lot of times you'll hear people say that there's this opinion that like the highest level of technology that the government has is on average like 50 to 100 years advanced, like from what we actually like know, anything we know about, right? And I don't know about that. I don't know if that's true.
No, that's definitely not true.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I've heard that theory on a lot of these like type of stories. You know what I mean?
I mean, if that was true, you would see it being used in warfare occasionally.
Exactly.
And you don't.
And why wouldn't they? Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like think about the Gulf War, which was, in the 90s, which was heavily televised. Like you got these idiot reporters going over there to a war zone. It's like, what are you doing over there? But I appreciate them putting themselves in danger, but it's like, hey, you got a family at home, man. What are you doing? Like, that's crazy. What's wrong with you guys?
Maybe the story isn't that important. But I think we can figure out what's happening.
You'd have them like showing footage of, like when the stealth fighters or stealth bombers would go overhead. And then I guess they would blow up the radars ahead of time and they would start dropping the bombs or whatever. Like they would know that the planes were up there somewhere and they would light up the whole sky with anti-aircraft cannons basically, but they couldn't track them. They didn't know where they were. It was just, they were just shooting randomly. That's all they could do to defend themselves. So that, I mean, but that's the technology we had then. That was not 100 years ahead of, what we had.
Oh no.
Like we're not 100 years in advance of that. And what we have now is like probably way, way badder ass than a stealth bomber, probably.
I would hope so.
I'm guessing. But I mean, I guess if you're to say what available to what the public knows or something, maybe 10 years or 20 years, maybe, I don't know, but definitely not.
Yeah.
Like
that sounds
100.
That sounds a lot more reasonable to me. Yeah.
And they usually, for whatever reason, they usually were like, okay, this is our secret stuff from like 10, 20 years ago. Haha. They're probably just doing that because if we do that, it psychs out the Russians or the Chinese or whoever, because they're like, oh shit, that's their old stuff? We got to get on it.
Yeah. Well, and like I had said before too, in 1951, we had like a V-wing experimental aircraft, but how many of them were around? Not this many. And you can see in these pictures how many lights you're looking at, and I guarantee you, whatever V-shaped craft we had, we didn't have this many. Like not all at the same time for sure. There was no reason to create that many V-shaped format aircraft if it's experimental, because you're only dealing with a couple craft because it's experimental. Yeah, there's no reason to create this many because it's not a proven craft yet. There's no reason why you'd create that many.
And so some of the witnesses reported seeing these crafts going from horizon to horizon in 1 or 2 seconds, and then they would see another one in like a 2 or 3 second intervals. Like they'd see like 2 or 3 one after another, and it's just, I guess if they had like 2 or 3 top secret planes, it just doesn't make sense for it to be a top secret plane.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these descriptions just kind of, just think about that for a second. Like if you can imagine, you're sitting there at night, maybe chilling on the patio, having a barbecue with your friends or whatever, and you
smoking a stogie.
You see this group of lights go horizon to horizon in just a few seconds, and then a few seconds pass, and then it happens again. That's crazy, man. That's just trying to imagine it. It's unreal.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to have that experience. I would love to see something like that. But if I did, there's no way I would think it was birds. Yeah. For example, I mean, like we had said already, like the speed in which they were moving. And also like this is one of those stories like we had talked about before. There's so many people that saw it and basically described the same thing. There's a couple little small differences that people had described, but it's pretty much the same thing that everybody described. And there's a lot of them. So like to me, like I said, I sometimes I try to be a skeptic, you know what I mean? But like with something like this, it's just like, I don't know what the hell else it could be. I just don't know, what if it's not UFOs, then I don't know what,
Yeah. All right. So I think Agent Ether wants to talk a little bit about a Life magazine article. Is this true? But true. Before we do that,
oh dear,
it's time for more advertising.
Are you going to advertise that new watch you got?
No, I'll do that at the end of the show. It's awesome. Well, it's awesome. You can write.
I can tell you.
Come on. But well, yeah, I'll do that at the end of the show.
All right.
Right now, I'm advertising.
I didn't know you were serious.
Team Republic, by the way, I just got my couple of shirts in the mail and some stickers and stuff, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it's badass. All right. Do you have some cryptocurrency that is looking for a good home that's not your very, very vulnerable computer? Well, you're in luck because we have Ledger Wallets, a good hardware solution for all of your cryptocurrency needs. Well, maybe not all. There's some altcoins they don't support, but they support more coins than ever before. That's right, the Ledger Wallet. Check out the link in the description. All right, now back to the show. I like to keep those short and sweet. Oh, shit, it's Agent Kruger.
Wow. Hey, Agent Kruger.
Oh, boy.
All right, we're going to have to, let's get him up and recording. Looks like he finally made it. We were just waiting for Ether to get back. She's going to talk about the Life magazine article. Now, Life magazine was a pretty big deal back in the day. I think it's pretty safe to say that,
oh, yeah,
probably everybody read it. I don't know about everybody, but a ton of people read this thing. So what do you got for us, Agent Ether?
Okay, let me get comfortable here.
Okay, got your fuzzy blanket?
From my return, I'm kind of chilly, yeah. So Life magazine had a special article, and I think it was the same edition they released that had like Marilyn Monroe on the cover, but she was on the cover more than once.
Yeah, she was a big thing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. She's so pretty with her hair. I love her hair. Okay, so they did the special articles. Have we visitors from space? Love the title.
Yeah.
And it featured several incidents, each with a description, followed by an evaluation.
Okay.
And the lights, the Lockburn Lights were...
Lubbock Lights.
Lubbock Lights. Just thinking of the...
Lockbourne Air Force Base.
Lockbourne Air Force, yeah. The Lubbock Lights were one of those incidents. So that starts off saying that last week, the U.S. Air Force made known to Life magazine the following facts. Now, this would be in 1952 that this article came out. They said, as a result of continuing flying saucer reports, the Air Force maintains constant intelligence, investigation, and study of unidentified aerial objects. So basically, they're saying the Air Force let them know that they're actively monitoring for this type of phenomena. It said that they had a policy to find out what is responsible for observations that have been made. And so military aircraft are supposed to come in when they're alerted and attempt to intercept whatever it is that they're looking for. And they're going to be using radar and photographic equipment to actually obtain factual data. In addition, they're going to try and recover any remains of identified objects. So I thought this was kind of interesting.
Remains.
Because I wasn't aware that the Air Force released this kind of information to Life magazine. Like, they went and interviewed the Air Force? Like, how did that work? They released this statement, but just to Life magazine?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
And it's also strange because they're, on one hand, they're saying, it's nothing, don't worry about it. But then they release statements like this that kind of make you wonder, like, what did whoever released that statement, did they not get the memo that that it's all just swamp gas and weather balloons? They didn't get that memo, Well,
to me, it's kind of like, what mind games are they trying to play? You know what I mean?
Then it goes on to say that there's trained personnel, scientists, private and commercial pilots, etc., who, work in the sky, and they're urged to make immediate reports to the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base of any unidentified aerial objects they sight. So they're giving specific instructions in Life magazine for people who are in some way related, it says, to the sky, concerns of the sky, to report directly to the Air Technical Intelligence Center, to one specific place.
Yeah, that's where Project Blue Book was out of.
Right.
Wright-Patterson, I think. But yeah, and at the time, I think there was a large concern about foreign adversaries. And I think that was probably the biggest concern, more so than space aliens. And that's probably why they asked for those reports, in my opinion, because they can't watch everything all the time. So if they have all these people who are reporting strange things, just think about how quickly technology was advancing at this time. So they were probably afraid that, maybe the Russians got their hands on some of the Nazi scientists who were able to develop something that we couldn't, like nuclear powered craft, for example.
Then they go on to invite the public to also go ahead and report their sightings. They say that each sighting will get expert consideration and will be thoroughly investigated. But they also say the identity of people making those reports will be kept in confidence and no one will be ridiculed for making one.
Unless they actually send somebody to investigate, in which case the investigator will not actually investigate the sighting, but will just do character references and try to make you look like a fool.
I still thought it was interesting that the Air Force is through Life magazine encouraging people to go ahead and report. And they know it's going to be a problem because people are being ridiculed. And so they're trying to circumnavigate it in some ways.
Yeah.
Because they do come out of the woodwork. Do let us know what's going on.
That is weird. I don't recall ever seeing a statement quite like that before from the military.
Yeah. And finally, there's no reason as yet to believe that any of the aerial phenomena commonly described as flying saucers are caused by a foreign power or constitute a clear and present danger to the United States or its citizens. So that's the last statement from the U.S. Air Force to Life magazine.
That's okay. Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was kind of interesting.
It's interesting that you mentioned ridicule, whatever. Whatever. But Carl Hart had actually after he had taken those photos and then released it to the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. Supposedly he had, or supposedly whatever. Sorry for that. He had been grilled by a couple different government individuals and people by the Air Force as well. After he had taken those photos, and they're basically like I saw an interview that was made later on in his life. I don't know what age he was. I think it was in 1991 or something like that, or something like that. As one of those interviews I watched, while researching this, so. But he said like they grilled him pretty hard, and like he said it was a very uncomfortable situation basically because all he had done was taking some photos. That's it. But then he got grilled like I don't know exactly in what way because he didn't really describe it in that detail. But it's kind of it's kind of weird that like the guy only took some photos, and then he got scrutinized by a lot of people, and he even like mentioned that like a lot of people that he had come into contact, like just in like, regular, like, in the public and stuff, had basically either like treated him like he was a kook or crazy or something like that, or treated him like these photos were, made up basically, you know what I mean? It was a hoax. And he basically, he just had the opinion that like, or the outlook that like, he was like, well, I took the photos. I don't know exactly what I took the photos of. I believe that they're aliens, is what I got from that interview. But like, he definitely had some, he was not appreciative of the response that he had been given. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Agent Ether, I see you have more papers over there.
I do have more.
All right.
I have more. It's not just that. So the article is actually an investigation by Life magazine itself. So they look at 10 cases, and 3 of them were actually cases that they discovered themselves that hadn't been reported on before in the course of their investigation.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to go into detail because they're pretty much basic sightings. But they start with the Kenneth Arnold sighting. The big one is where they start. And they go over the incident in, some detail, a couple paragraphs, give their conclusion, etc. And then they have, of course, the Lubbock Lights as one of their incidences. And they describe the professors in the back of their home, looking up into the sky, seeing these shapes, and then a few moments later seeing another one of these shapes. And they present the photographs in Life magazine with different captions, Let's see.
Was one of the captions not a UFO?
No, no. The caption was something like one of them was, "The Lubbock Lights flying in formation are considered by the Air Force the most unexplainable phenomena yet observed. These photographs were made at Lubbock, Texas on August 30th, 1951 by Carl Hart Jr. Scientists say the lights were not natural objects and they traveled too fast and too soundlessly for known machines." And then it says, depicts 3 photos of symmetrical boomerang-shaped double row of lights.
Yep, that's what's in the pictures, yeah.
And then it has a third picture as well. Carl Hart, the 18-year-old student, photographed the Lubbock Lights with a Kodak 35. And then they go ahead and evaluate. They give this 1-paragraph explanation. And they say the observations surrounding that incident were too numerous and too similar to one another to be doubted. And the Air Force found nothing fraudulent about Hart's pictures. The Life magazine concludes they're much too bright to be reflections. And the original professors could form no precise estimate of their speed, but if the lights were traveling at an altitude of 5,000 feet, they must have been traveling at 1,800 miles per hour.
Wow.
This is the estimate from Life magazine. The professors, along with other scientists, agreed that in order to explain the silence of the objects, it must be assumed that they were 50,000 feet of the air, in which case they were not going 1,800, but 18,000 miles per hour. So I don't know about that deductive reasoning there, but...
Yeah. Well, if they were at 50,000 feet, they must have been... Each light would have been the size of a football field or something like that. They would have been...
Right.
In order to be the size of like a dinner plate, as one witness described them.
I think that's just a little bit of
huge
sensationalization right there. You know?
Got to get them clicks.
Yeah. But what I found interesting was that kind of like a letter to the editor sort of thing. When this article was published, they had people write in about it. And one of the letters they received was, in fact, from Robinson, Oberg, Ducker, and George of Lubbock, Texas. And they say that as observers of the lights, we wanted to point out that the photographs are different from the objects we saw.
Interesting.
Yeah, they say it's not the same objects. They say all but 3 of the groups we cited had no geometric form. Those 3 were smooth arcs, not V-shaped like in the photographs. Those 3 could not be conclusively determined to be composed of individual lights, but certainly they were not made up of 2 distinct rows of alternately spaced lights. None of our sightings was bright enough nor in view long enough to be photographed.
Interesting.
Even if the lights we saw had been particularly rich in non-visible ultraviolet light, they could not have been photographed without special equipment. And finally, they say all of our sightings were close to the same speed of 30 degrees per second, at which speed it would be impossible to follow them with the camera accurately enough to obtain an unblurred image.
Wow.
So they're coming forward, and I don't think they're saying the photographs are necessarily fake. I think they're saying this isn't what we saw.
Interesting. And that, if they were moving that fast, it would be difficult to get, I think I found somewhere, I forget where, the actual shutter speed that he used to take those photos. I don't remember what that is, and I don't know what any of that stuff is anyway, so it wouldn't mean anything to me. But yeah. Well, you can use information like the shutter speed to, get certain data about the photograph, but that's a little bit above my pay grade.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and
that's really cool.
I loved reading the original Life article, which I found online, and I also found a lot of newspaper clippings as well that basically describe the incidents as Agent Anderson was telling us about, so it'd be redundant to go over them. But, everything that he's saying is backed up, in fact, by different clippings, by Project Blue Book, by classified the documents that have since become unclassified, and of course by the photographs themselves. There's a lot of evidence that something definitely happened around this time.
Yeah, it was definitely something.
Something.
So Speaking of something, is that all you had for the Life magazine article, Agent Ether?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I actually went through the Blue Book files looking for other sightings that were similar, because quite often when you have, a sighting like this, you might see a very similar sighting in, let's say, California or something. And if there's like a flap of sightings, a UFO flap, then it's pretty typical to see that, all over the country, even the world. You'll see sightings that are similar. So in the files, there was a whole bunch of sightings of like oval-shaped crafts, like saucer-shaped crafts and stuff. But we'll skip over those. I'll go over a couple of, see what time is it? Oh, right about an hour. Okay. So I'll go over a couple of these sightings. Now, first of all, one of them that I've seen mentioned along with the Lubbock Lights was something in Matador, Texas on the 31st of August. Now, even though the object didn't look like what we are describing in the Lubbock Lights, it was, a similar area, similar time. So maybe some people think it's somehow associated. So here's what a witness said about, I think this is actually the summary. Object like a yellow pear-shaped tomato, aluminum or silver in color, that reflected the sunlight readily, had a door, window, or something similar located where the object began to taper toward the smaller end, moved throughout the air with small end forward. No noise, exhaust, or wind of visible means of propulsion were observed. Object estimated 40 feet long and 16 feet in diameter. Object was drifting slowly in easterly direction about 150 feet above the ground. It began rapid ascent and moved away to the east in a circular direction in a matter of seconds. But maybe it is related. If this big giant boomerang thing is the mothership, then maybe it's sending out probes. Who knows? And if you look at the photographs, there's like that boomerang shape, but there is like an orb off to the side in all of the pictures. So who knows? Could be something, could be anything. But that's still kind of an interesting case. And that file is many pages. It's just, I didn't want to go into all of it right now because it's just too much for one episode, I guess. So there's another sighting on the August 25th, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this one is marked unknown, unidentified at 2158. A Sandia base security guard and his wife saw a flying wing-type aircraft similar to a B-49 pass over the backyard of their trailer home. He described the wingspan as being 1.5 times a B-36, which he was familiar with. And a B-36 is the largest wingspan of any combat aircraft ever built, about 230-foot wingspan. So if it was 1.5 times that, then it would be 345 feet across, which is more than a football field. Football field's like 300 feet, right? So it's
huge.
That's huge. And he estimated the altitude of being 800 to 1,000 feet. And for an airplane, that's pretty dang low. Remember, like, if you're in a jumbo jet cruising from, somewhere to somewhere, you're going to be flying like 30 to 50,000 feet. 50,000 feet. So if you see an airplane at 100 feet or 1,000 feet, that's like really, really low. Yeah.
Doesn't make no sense.
Yep. No sound at all from the object. And it was twilight, so it was kind of dark out, so he couldn't tell the color of the craft. But he did see dark cordwise stripes on the underside of the wings, so going like sort of front to back. And he saw 6 to 8 pairs of soft glowing lights on the trailing edge of the wing. He estimated the speed to be 300 to 400 miles an hour. And here's a quote: "The possibility of this being a known aircraft was checked with negative results. The aircraft, the AC and W radar station," I'm guessing W stands for weather, "at Kirtland Air Force Base did not observe any unusual or unidentified aircraft." And that's a quote from the file, not from the witness. So this is an unclassified document. So when that was written, that was considered like secret, and it wasn't for public viewing or public knowledge. So they checked, and it was not something of ours. It was not our aircraft. We don't know what it was. The witness was shown the photographs of the Lubbock Lights and said it looked similar. Now, a communication in the communication, like a memo in the file, is marked as secret, whereas the other parts of the file are generally marked as restricted, which is a lower level than secret. And on that file, you see it's stamped like priority. It has lots of stuff underlined. And looking at that, it looks like they were very, very concerned about this incident. And some of the like, for example, the description 6 to 8 brilliant mercury white lights on the trailing edge wings. That sounds a lot like what was described, in the Lubbock Lights. So that one I thought was very striking and very similar to what we saw. I would like to go over this file in more detail at some point because it's kind of a long one and there's a lot of interesting stuff. But that's just a real short summary, and it sounds an awful lot like the Lubbock Lights, I think. And there's some other ones, like on the 26th of August, Larson Air Force Base in Washington the radar tracked an object going 950 miles an hour for 6 minutes at 13,000 feet. There was one in Claremont, California, where 6 bright orange lights on September 6th in an incomplete circle, and 2 objects towards the center of the formation, flying at 10 to 12,000 feet, and 1 object following on the same course as the first objects. So that one sounds sort of similar. And there's another one on September 6th in Hollywood, California, marked other psychological, meaning they think the witness is crazy. But this one is a glowing deep red objects appeared, headed towards moon. 1 object had a flash of brilliant white light. Other object was behind moon. Ship was 3x as long as moon's diameter, disappeared by going up. It's like, all right, I don't think that's related, but it was really weird, so I wanted to mention it. So here's one from 16th of September, Marion, Ohio, marked as possibly aircraft. It was an object with a high tail, 45-degree swept back wing, long pointed nose, and painted black, coming towards pilot at a 50-degree reciprocal heading, barely escaped colliding with object, pilot at 2,800 feet altitude, heading 230 degrees. So that one is probably not related, but it does have swept back wings. There's something of a similarity there. Who knows? But I just kind of took, notation of it. Let's see. So there's one more description I'll go over, and I'm quoting the file here. On September 10th, an MP-1 radar set picked up a fast-moving, low-flying target at approximately 1110 southeast of Fort Monmouth at a range of 12,000 yards. The target appeared to approximately follow the coastline, changing its range only slightly, but changing its azimuth rapidly. The radar set was switched to full aided azimuth tracking, which is normally fast enough to track jet aircraft, but in this case was too slow to be resorted to. The target was lost in the northeast at a range of about 14,000 yards. This target also presented an unusually strong return for an aircraft being comparable on strength to that usually received from a coastal ship. The operator initially identified the target as a ship and then realized that it could not be a ship after he observed its extreme speed. And that's just a radar sighting from an 87-page report on Fort Monmouth sightings. And this one is just like, well, this was not a visual sighting, it was radar only. But this thing was moving so fast that they couldn't even track its speed on the radar. It was like in and out pretty much. It was just, they couldn't even track it. And the blip or the return was the size of like a ship, like a aircraft carrier or something. Like we're talking about huge. We're talking about a big boy. So that's another case I'd like to go over in more detail at some point, but obviously not enough time tonight. But yeah, in general, so for a lot of the other stuff in the report for the Lubbock Lights, which by the way is if you're looking for this on Fold 3, it's actually underneath of a different file. It's if the file for Lubbock Lights is found under a sighting from Orange, Virginia. And I want to do a bonus episode and go over some of that stuff. I might even have to do a 2-parter because there's just so much in the file. It's over 100 pages, but so that's more or less all I had this time for the Lubbock Lights. Any final or other thoughts, other agents?
Let me view my notes.
Oh, you have more notes?
While Kruger is giving us his thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And like some of the reports that we've heard about like these Tic Tac objects or what have you that even were followed by pilots, to me it seems like if you were able to follow it or track it at all, it must have been because that whatever that object was, whoever was controlling it, whatever it was, they didn't care about you tracking it, or they were allowing you to for some reason. Excuse me, for some reason. Yeah, well, whatever it is, I've heard theories about like those Tic Tacs possibly being like drones that are actually moving in an upward, a higher dimension than we exist in, because the way that they were moving and like how fast they're going and just like what they were doing was so unreasonable as far as like if there was any biological living entity in that they wouldn't be able to deal with the stresses involved, like what we're talking about,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean I guess that's about it for the Lubbock Lights. I have no idea what it was, but it was definitely weird,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
I'll come out and say I think it was aliens.
All right.
Because I don't think we had the technology to produce whatever was seen. And I don't think any other country did either, so the way it wasn't birds, damn it. It was not birds or stars. It wasn't a weather balloon, and nor was it the planet Venus, so, well, maybe swamp gas.
For those high altitude swamps.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I guess that's about all we got for you this week. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to help us out, check out the affiliate link in the description. This week we've got Casio watches. I saw this on Amazon. I didn't know they made these anymore. You remember those old calculator watches that, those digital oh man, I love this thing.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even remember them until you showed me. It was like this moment.
Yeah.
Of nostalgia I didn't even know was there.
I just saw it. I can't believe they still make these things. So I bought myself one because,
I remember when I was a kid, I thought those watches were so cool.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, it's technology. Look at how much technology there is in this watch.
Well,
but it's really not that impressive.
Okay. Well, yeah, but here, check this out though. I can write boobs on my watch. Can you write boobs on your watch? I don't
write
think
it on
you can.
my phone. There's all kinds of things I can do with boobs on my phone. more than on your watch.
Well, it's a watch, not a phone. You can't wear your phone on your wrist either.
Yes, you can, actually.
Not comfortably.
No, they got like the iWatches and stuff.
Yeah, but last time I checked, the iWatch actually had to connect to your phone, which you have to carry with you. So it's not like a standalone device.
It's still pretty cool. It is, in fact, your phone on your wrist. That's all I'm saying.
No, but you're talking about a cell phone. I guess it's a little tiny cell phone. I don't know. I was thinking more of the pocket cell phones.
Just
these things are
cute
huge.
Little itty bitty cell phone. Actually, I don't have one. I already feel tied up enough with my electronic device. I don't think I need one on my wrist as well.
Well, if you look at the reviews on Amazon, people will point out that although the technology is old, it's just as good as an iWatch. For example, if you make the watch really tight, you can feel your pulse. so it's kind of like having a pulse monitor. Yeah, the reviews are awesome. People have like picture reviews where they're spelling words and stuff. It's fun. Even if you don't buy it, it's still fun. You just look at the reviews. But yeah, it's a super cool watch. Stylish. I'll post a picture on Discord in a moment.
I might just have to get one, dude.
Yeah,
just
dude,
for nostalgia's sake.
They're awesome. Here, I'll post a picture in the live show chat right now. I took a picture earlier. Let me see. Let me find it. Let's see.
The power.
Here we go. Live show. See. Okay, here we go. Check this out. There it is. Check that sucker. Oh, it's so awesome. I love it. So yeah. And the cool thing is that it's they're not that expensive. They're like $20, and given the materials, it's pretty good quality for the price. I'm not sure it's going to last like super long, but if you take care of it, you're not too rough on it, it'll probably last you a good time.
Nah, it should. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't last.
Actually, it is waterproof. Yeah. Well,
Oh, is it water resistant or waterproof?
water resistant to a certain depth. I forget what depth that is, but it's not nothing. You could take it into the swimming pool probably, no problem.
Dude, I'm going to get one. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you right now, if it's only like $20 or whatever, why the hell not? I'm going to do it. Yeah. Oh,
yeah, Casio, they have watches of different price ranges. Like there's some of their G-Shock series, which are designed to be like super rugged and stuff. And they have pretty advanced features on those, like solar powered batteries. And it checks with the satellite to calibrate the time a couple times a day and stuff like that. Like they've gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years, but those ones can get pretty expensive. I think the most expensive G-Shocks, like they might have like a compressed carbon case and stuff. They can be upwards of $500, but I mean, those are some really cool watches. I'm more interested in this one though. I just really love this watch for some reason. I think it's great. But yeah, if you guys want to buy one of the more expensive ones, then by all means, I'm not going to stop you. But
I just noticed that you spelled boobs on it, like we were talking about. I looked at the picture. I just was
yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah, and it looks like Denny says that when he was in school earlier, teachers would make them take the watches off or what have you for taking tests.
Yeah,
which kind of makes sense. I mean, because they wanted, like with a math test or whatever. I remember like when I was in school, like they would want you to show the work. You know what I mean? Not take any shortcuts or whatever. And also they didn't want you to be constantly spelling boobs.
Yeah. So anyways, check it out. Links in the description. Your purchase supports the show and doesn't cost you anything extra.
Keep it strange.
That was a long advertisement.
A fun one though.
Yeah. All right. Oh, wait. Before we get going, I got to do a shout. I keep forgetting to shout out the live audience, whoever's left. All right. We got left in the live audience. We got Diamond, Owzy Mima, Bronco Zach, Denny, and Dick Cheese McGee. What's up? Hope you're feeling a little better, Diamond. And I'm glad to have all you here. I really appreciate you guys listening. And yeah, thanks. So once again, keep it strange.